Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Shellie Geigle with Janus Hobbies and Crafts, and today's tutorial is on this 6 1/8 by 8 1/4 inch folio, and I used one paper pack, and that was the Stamperia Winter Valley paper pack. And I'll take you around here, and this holds quite a bit. We have magnetic closure and it just opens up. And then this folds out. So the first fold, we have this to place a photograph there, and then we fold out again. And I'm going to slide this down. Over here we have a large pocket, and I just used what was left over in the paper pack. So I ended up making folders so I can just place my photos in, and I was able to make some photo mats as well. Over here we have another pocket, and I made another folder and a photo mat. Moving on, I have a free floating folder here to place photographs in. Over here I have another one I tucked back behind, and it's just another folder. And then this flips up. I'm going to move this out of the way. And right up here you can place a photograph or put a photo mat in there. I did a folder, and it just tucks right back behind there. And then we have a large pocket, and I have two good sized photo mats. And then over here is open. You can just place your photo. And then we fold out again, but up front we have a pocket, and I got another photo mat and another folder. Opens up, and I have a couple free floating photo mats in there, and then you just place your photographs. And then to close it, once you have your stuff back in, you just kind of fold it over on itself, and then it latches. So that is what we are making today. The only thing I could say is I forgot in the tutorial to have you put Winter Joy right here, and you could do that at the end or pick a different sentiment. Let's move on into the materials list. Materials list, you don't need a whole lot for this one. You're going to want one of the Stamperia Romantic Collection. It's the Winter Valley, and you'll need the 12 by 12 size. I'm using for my base and my pockets and everything the American Crafts 80-pound 12 by 12 cardstock. You're also going to need one pack of the basic gray large magnets, and you'll have half of these left over for your next project. You'll want some 1/4 inch score tape, and you'll want some art glitter dry as clear glue with that metal tip. This has no glitter in it, that's just the brand name. Equipment that you're going to want a ruler, pencil with an eraser, craft knife is handy, your scissors, your bone folder or scoring tool, scoring board, and paper cutter. All right, let's begin assembling. We're going to review the pre-cuts under the base section on the pre-cutting guide. Now, I made a note that if you are new, you can wait, and I'll be demonstrating what to do, the scoring and the seaming. So we had two pieces that were 8 1/4 by 12 inch, and we labeled these base. We're using 1/4 inch score tape. So on one of these, we're going to lay it right along the edge without going over. We're going to use our tool and burnish that tape down really good. We'll remove the score tape backing. And now what we're going to do is seam these together. Now, I have a hard time getting things straight, so I'm going to be using the paper guide on my paper cutter here. So here's the sticky side. I'm just going to do that, and I'll slide this in through here, push it up against the paper guide, and overlap. And then I'm going to go ahead and burnish. All right, it's time to score this. So it said that after seaming this, you should be anywhere between 23.5 to 23 5/8 long. So we're going to stick this up on our scoring board. Our first score is at 3 1/8, and you're gonna wanna make sure that your scoring is accurate on folios. Our next score was 3 7/8, 10 1/8, and 10 3/4. The instructions then said to rotate your papers, so it's once again laying 23 to 23 5/8 across. We're going to score from the other side is all. So I have this up here. We're going to score at 6 1/8 and 6 7/8. I'm going to go ahead and erase all this. I do want to say that it does not matter if the starting point of your scoring board starts here or here. I will get us situated. I'm going to erase all this now. Now all we're going to do is fold on each one of these score lines, and we're going to be folding it in one direction. So when you fold, make sure you're lining up on the sides. Use your tool. And we will keep going. So you may have to grab your paper and make sure that it's lined up there. Okay, so I have all of these done, and how this is the short side, here's the shorter side you can see, is always going to be off to the right. So with this, how it's going to go is this goes in, this folds over, and this comes over the top there, just like that. So let's label these really quick. So with it all folded in, here's my short side. This is our outside closure. Excuse my messy writing. Outside closure. This is the front. While it's together, rotate it. Here's the back. Grab some magnets. And I have a pack that's already opened here. Grab 2+ and 2-. So here's a little short side. Let's grab a couple pluses here. Our short side, we're going to fold out. We're going to just kind of place these. I'm going to come in probably about 1 inch from the side of my paper until it hits here, or 3/4 of an inch. Come on, you. I'm grabbing the other plus, and I'll just bring it down here somewhere. All right, let's place the mates on top. Now, what I want you to do is when we release these, we're going to do one at a time. If you're looking at it, you have this open. Do you see this top corner? When we roll this around, that top corner tucks right where this first score line is over here. So we're going to make sure that this, when we pull it over, we're going to release the score tape backing off those mates. And we're going to line it up at the top, and then we'll press. So one at a time so it doesn't get away from us. We're going to take off the backing off one. And here I go. Make sure, and I'm going to keep a hand down here so this doesn't grab yet. But I'm going to make sure that tucks in, and I'm lining up the top exactly how it's supposed to go. And then I'm just going to kind of press. Now I'm going to shimmy that off. Now the bottom one, it should go right in line with the other. I'm going to keep my hand down here so it doesn't grab first. This one will grab for me, like that. And then I'm just going to make sure that that's tucked in down there, and I'll let it fall. All right, we have 2 more pre-cuts. Let's go over them. We had a 6 1/4 by 8 1/4 piece, and we called it P2. P means page 2. What we did was we laid this on our scoring board. We are 6 1/4 inch across, and we scored at 1/4 inch. We can go ahead and fold on that, and we are going to use our tool to help us here. And then we're going to place this in just a moment. Next, we had a 6 3/8 by 8 1/4. We called it P5. So this is our page 5 we're going to be placing in our folio. All we did was lay that, so we are 6 3/8 across, and on this one we scored at 3/8. And we can go ahead and fold. Okay, time to get P2 in. So I'm working with P2. I'm going to open this up. The short side once again is off to the right. To make this easier so you can see clearly what I'm up to, I'm going to be drawing on my score lines. I'll be erasing my score lines when I'm done. Okay, so this is P2. If you were to have your little hinge here off to the right, the peak is up right now. I'm going to add glue to that. Whoops, I'm getting a little crazy. Okay, I'm going to rotate it. So the peak is over here. And you see where that first score line is that I drew in for you? We're just going to place that right next to that. Make sure it's even with top and bottom. And we're going to place it. I'm going to erase as best I can my pencil. I drew it dark. If you want to draw yours, do it very lightly. But I did it dark so that you could see. Now on mine, I have blemishes because I did draw in very dark, and when I tried to erase, some of the eraser got there. I'm not going to worry about that. I'll doctor mine up and fix that so that isn't visible. But now what we have is over here, we're going to put P1. Go ahead and draw on that. This is what we just inserted. I want you to go P2 on the back. We're going to erase any writing if you have writing, depending on how you scored and fold. This becomes P3. This is P4. And now it's time to get in P5. Now we have a seam right here, and don't confuse that with your score line when putting this in. We're going to do the same thing with this one. The peak is over here, so glue, and we are going to place that right next to our score line. So for me, so I don't have to doctor up too much, I'm going to erase my score line now before I get it down, so I don't have to doctor it up too much, because I did get glue squirting out and I put my line pretty heavy. But that's all we're going to do here. So here's my score line. I'm going to bring that up like I did before, make sure I'm even top and bottom, and then I'm going to use my tool to make sure that's down. So this is it. I'm going to erase the back side. Okay, I'm going to flip this back over. This is now P5. We'll turn it. This is P6. P7 for page 7, and then over here I'm just going to put P8. So how this all goes in, here's P1, it just keeps folding in on itself and closes. All right, we're going to move on to decorating the outside, as well as when you fold this out, we have nothing here because there's P1. This is our outside panel. So we can write that, outside panel, and there are no pre-cuts. So we're going to do that. In your paper pack, you will find this print, and on the back it is blue. One thing about this is that we are cutting for this paper. Now you can use a different paper and do the cuts and manage your own paper to make sure you have enough for your folio. However, if this is your first time, I recommend using the same paper as me. And I do get detailed on the measurements and how to cut your paper so you get the same exact results as what you saw in the very beginning of this video. So by doing that, I try to stay consistent on how I tell you to cut. So I tell you to start over here and measure over this way. However, I may have us turn our paper this way. We start here and go this way. So it's just, instead of having you cut up, down, all around, it just helps to stay consistent. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our paper this way. We are going to start here, measure over 11.5 inches and cut. So 11.5, and I'm going to cut. Anything that falls off the side, unless I tell you to set it off to the side immediately, this is going to go into our reserve pile. It's also your scrap pile. I just call it a reserve pile because we're reserving pieces to use again. So we'll do that. Next, we're going to turn our paper this way now. The tree is over here. Measure over 8 1/8 and cut. So 8 1/8. This piece for now, put in your reserves. Looking at your paper like this, measure over 5 7/8 and cut. So 5 7/8. This piece, hold off to the side. We will need this. So here is our outside closure and our front. We're going to go ahead and shimmy that off. This piece here is going to adhere down to the front. And when we do that, we are going to center it so you still see a white border around this piece. Now, if you want to use glue, you can. I like to use score tape on the outside. I don't want any wobbling. So I am going to put score tape around the outside like a picture frame, one down the middle, and one down either side, and then I can shimmy in some glue if I feel I need to. So I'll show you what yours should look like in just a moment, if you're using the score tape like me. If you are new to using score tape or any of these type of projects, you'll want to make sure that you burnish down your score tape and get the air out from underneath it. All right, now that I have this down, I'm going to remove the score tape backing and place it, and we'll place this together. I'm going to drizzle in a little glue in between there, just a little bit, not a whole lot. Now, because this is a good size, and if you're new and trying to get it in straight, sometimes it's hard. You can shoot glue down at the bottom of it to help you give a little wiggle room before the score tape grabs. And when score tape grabs, it's not forgiving. So I'm going to make sure I get the top of my magnets there. And I'm going to place it. Now you can roll out this whole thing and lay it flat when you're doing it. I tend to like to have mine so I can actually see where the lines are a little better. If you get it on a little crooked, I mean, chances are nobody's going to see that. So once you do have it down, then you can go ahead and open that up and burnish. And be mindful where those magnets are so you don't gouge your paper. Make sure you wipe up any glue. All right, so far, that's what it looks like. Let's set this off to the side. This is where you're going to want to get your pencil and your ruler out. Now from this side, measure over 3 inches, and we're going to make a pencil line, real light, just so that we can see it. We're going to come down here, and we'll do that again so we can get a straight line and we can see what we're doing here. Now, what we're going to be doing is having this lay over. So, and I'll show you what I mean by that. From the left ear of the deer, I would like you to measure up 1/4 inch, make a pencil line. And also, might be a good idea, because that's about 4 inches. From down here, measure up 4 inches, and we'll situate that above the right ear so that we can get this on pretty straight. So I'm just going to make a little mark there. So here is what we're going to do. We're going to put this on our paper cutter and cut right down to that 4-inch mark. So let's do that. lined up with that, down to that line. Okay. From that, now I'm going to kind of come over and curve. And you can do any kind of curve, and we're going to go over here. But it doesn't have to be perfect. All we want to do is get that curve. So what I'm trying to get at here is when this lays down, it's going to be a good fit to give us a white border. And it's already the correct height. Okay, and you can do yours all sorts of ways. Now, when you lay this down and give yourself about a 1/16 of white here all the way down, you will see that it's still a little long over there. So this is where we're going to see our other paper. We're going to go down to where the edge of that is. And we're going to draw a little line so we know to cut it there. I hope that makes sense. Once I do this, you'll probably understand what I'm trying to get at here. So I'm just going to clip off this little bit. And I'm going to just kind of curve this a little bit more. Now we're not completely done yet. We're going to have to back this, okay, when we do it, because we don't want just plain paper here. But when we're done, it's going to overlap like this, and you'll be able to see part of the tree and all that. Grab a piece of cardstock that will accommodate this whole piece. And I'm going to use a fresh sheet here. I'm going to add glue to this whole piece, and all we're doing is stiffening this up a bit. I'm going to bring this all the way down to the corner of my cardstock and line it up at the bottom. And then we're going to burnish this. I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to follow my decorated paper. There is no white border here. However, when I get down to here, then I'm going to cut and leave about a 1/16 of white showing. So I'm going to show you this. And you can do this on your paper cutter or whatever. I'm just kind of following this along. So once I get down here, I'm going to be about a 1/16 away. And so now I am just cutting, leaving a little sliver of white. So I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to show you up close what I've done. All right, so here's mine. Have this cut. I left a little bit, come on, focus there, of white border around the edge. Now we can actually glue this down. So let's do it. It's really not that hard. We're just kind of cutting out. You don't have to be perfect. And what I'm concentrating on here is making sure this is centered and kind of lines up with the same up here, and that gives me a white border over here. And once you think you have it where you need to be, you can burnish it. You only need glue down underneath this side, because this side we don't want any glue. So that's what I've done. Now, one step further, what you can do is grab a minus and a plus, because I'm going to do this to keep this shut. Place it right here, because we're going to put something over here anyway. And once you have it down here, put the mate. Okay. And now we're just going to bring that over and press, just like that. And now you have a really nice closure. In your paper pack, you will have this print. And I would like to get magical memories out. So I'm just going to cut between that, get it out, and I'm going to cut around this. All right, I am not going to back this to any cardstock. All I'm going to do is kind of place it right here over that magnet, and then I'm going to open this up to make sure I get a good burnishing around it. Make sure it's kind of straight. And that will cover up your magnet. So now when we close this up, here is our front of our folio. Now, when we were cutting for this, and we cut this piece out, put this in your reserves, you should have a long, skinny piece. You're going to measure over 8 1/8 and cut. And you'll find that in your reserves. And we're going to apply glue to the back of this, to this side, and this one fits perfectly over here. And we are just going to center it in side to side. It'll give you a little bit of a white border. And then we will open this up, lay it flat, and burnish. And you can just leave it open for now. We're going to get for here and then for the back. In your reserves, you should have this piece. Measure over 5/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Measure over 8 1/8 and cut. Right here, we're going to glue that right on in between those score lines. All right, now for this. In your paper pack, you should have this print. And on the back, it's this. We're going to turn it this way. We're going to measure over 8 1/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Measure over 6 inches and cut. All right, this piece, you can either apply glue and glue this down in between your score lines or use the score tape. I'm using score tape. I'm going to place it all the way around like a picture frame, one down the middle, one on each side, and I am going to place mine. Now you can keep it down flat, or you can bring it back around so you can see your score lines better. I'm just going to go ahead and place it, and I'm just trying to keep this even. So now closing it all up, this is what it should look like. Your sides, your back. We are now moving on in to the outside panel. And in your reserves, you will have this print. We're going to look at it like this. We're going to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. Now for the stuff on the inside, I'm going to just be using glue. So after making your cut, what I'd like you to do is verify that you are going to fit in there, and it's going to give you a nice white border around that. And mine does. So what I'm going to do is just kind of flip this around, and I'm going to use glue. Okay, be mindful of where your score line is, and then just get it in there centered. And you'll have a little bit more of a white border on your sides, and that's just fine. Now we have this. In your reserves, you should have this piece. I'm going to measure over 5/8 and cut. Once I've done that, I'm now going to measure over 8 1/8 and cut. Okay. I'm going to have the blue. This has a little green on it, but that's okay. I'm just going to apply my glue to this side here. What I got going? Something sticking. And I'm going to glue this down in between those score lines. Alrighty, we are now moving on in to page 1, P1. And off camera, I went ahead and I doctored this up, so it isn't so bad now. We had one pre-cut for our panel 1. We had a 3.5 by 9 inch piece. We called it a side pocket. We laid this on our scoring board, so we are 3.5 inches across, and we scored at a 1/2 inch. We then turned it, so now we're sitting at 9 inches across. We scored at a 1/2 and 8.5. All we're going to do is down here where our score lines meet, we're going to cut out those little squares on each side. We'll go ahead and turn it over, and we're going to fold on those score lines. We're just going to get this right ready to go. What you'll want to do for glue placement is folding in the sides. You'll see down here how far you need to go with your glue. And we're just putting it on that bottom flap, and we'll fold that up. So this is the bottom of the pocket. All right, let's get our paper. In your paper pack, you will have this print, and on the back, it is this. We're going to turn this completely upside down. We're going to measure over 5 7/8 and cut. Once you've done that, turn it this way, measure over 8 inches and cut. Here is our panel 1. We're going to apply glue to this, and we are going to center it on in there, making sure that we are well away from that score line. So if you just center it in there, you should have maybe about 1/8 all the way around. Let's apply glue. And glue this down. Now our deer is going to be covered up, but we'll still be able to see the fox, which is fine. We're going to grab our side pocket. Now the opening is here, so the bottom is going to be over here. So let's apply glue to these flaps. And we will bring it over to the side of our decorative paper, and we'll give that a burnish. In your reserves, you will have this piece. On the back, it looks like that. Measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Now, measure over 1 7/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Put the smaller piece in your reserves. Now measure over 8 inches and cut. All right, we're going to apply glue, and we're going to bring that all the way to the side of our pocket, which will give us a little bit of a white lip here, indicating that that is a pocket. Let's get this down. Okay, page 1 is complete. We're now moving on to page 2. We are on page 2, and we have one pre-cut, a 3.5 by 6 3/4. It's a pocket. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 3.5 across. We scored at 1/2. Then we turned it, so now we are 6 3/4 across. We scored at 1/2 and 6 1/4. We're going to do the same thing we did before. In the corners where our score lines meet and make the squares, cut those out and then fold on your score lines. Okay. Once you've folded, go ahead and apply your glue and pull up your sides and use your tool. All right, let's get our paper. In your reserves, you will have this piece. On the back, it's this. We're going to turn it this way. The rabbit is over here. Measure over 8 inches and cut. Next, turn it upside down. This is over here. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. After making those cuts, this is what you should have. Here's our panel 2. We're going to apply glue to this side, and we're going to glue that down and center it right on in there. Let's grab our pocket. The opening is right here. So we're going to add our glue to the flaps. And we'll bring it down to the bottom of our decorative paper. And we'll burnish that. In your reserves, you will have this piece. We're going to turn it this way. Measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Now we'll turn it upside down. The bunny's over here. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. All right, we're going to apply glue, and we are going to glue that down. And we can still get the bunny in there. If you'd rather not have the bunny, you can use this side up, however you want to do it. And we'll want to bring it down to create that little bit of a lip there. Let's grab this out of your reserves. And I think I would like to grab Christmas Spirit. So I'm just going to get this out and I'm going to cut out and around it. I'm going to apply glue to this. I'm not going to back this. And I'm going to place that right here. All right, page 2 is done. We are now moving on in to page 3. Okay, we have 2 pre-cuts for page 3. The first one was a 5 3/4 by 8 5/8, and we called it a flip. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 8 5/8 across. We scored at a half and 5/8. And that's just our flip. Next, we had a 3 1/2 by 6 3/4. We called it a pocket. It's identical to the one we found on page 2. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 3 1/2 across. We scored at a half. We then turned it. We are now 6 3/4 across. We scored at a half and 6 1/4. For your pocket, go ahead and cut out the squares, fold back, and assemble your pocket to get it ready. In your paper pack, you will find this print, and on the back, it is this. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to measure over 5 3/4 and cut. Once you've done that, turn it this way. We're going to measure over 1 7/8 and cut. After making that cut, this is what you should have. Actually, this piece goes in your reserves. We'll continue to look at it like this. Measure over 8 inches and cut. Grab your 5 3/4 by 8 5/8 flip. We're going to fold on both of those score lines. And we're going to attach it to our main page. So our flap or our hinge is going to be at the top. You have a top score line here and a bottom. On the top one, we're going to pinch and crease, and then we're going to hook it on to that. And you want to make sure it's nice and even in there, and then we're going to flip it over and keep your hand down so it doesn't slip. One way to know if you're getting this on straight is when you fold this out, you'll see your score line and it should be going straight on down with your paper. We're just going to add a little bit of glue, not too much. We'll fold it over and then we'll use our tool. Now, one thing about flips and fold outs is once you've done that, open it up and make sure no glue seeped up in here. Next, fold on your other score line, and then what you're going to do is push it. So now it's going to create a spacing, just like that. All right, let's flip that up and find some paper. Now, we are conserving paper. So the first thing I would like you to do is get this out of your paper pack, and this is what it looks like here. Go ahead and cut right down the middle to divide. The side we're going to be working with is this. Now I want you to put this on your paper cutter and divide these two. We're going to work with the owl. So the first thing I would like you to do with this is we're going to measure over 1/4 of an inch and cut. Just a sliver off there. After doing that, this is what you should have. Now I'd like you to measure over 5 1/2 and cut. Now we have a nice panel. Now this is going to be too short for up here, but that is perfectly okay. So as you can see, if you were to lay that down, leave a little bit of a white border up here and on the sides, it's a good fit. Glue that down. Glue that down. Now, if you'd rather not have the owl, you can actually go this side down, and that'd be lovely as well. Now for down here. In your reserves, you will find this piece. On the back, it's this. And let's just see. We're going to measure to fit. This will be a good piece. However, I am going to have this up. So I'm going to bring this over to the side of my decorated paper and line that up. And then I'm just going to make a pencil mark. If you want to just measure over 5 3/4, you can do that too. All right, let's glue that down once you've done that. And make sure that you leave a space away from your score lines. On the very last sheet is your cut aparts. See this? We're going to cut that out. And then I'll fix it up the best I can when I'm done. I'm not going to be real persnickety. I'm just going to go up the side and over. You can put this on your paper cutter if you'd like, but that's all I'm doing. This is going to come right on down here. Now I'm going to rotate this right side and the bottom. This is a little tuck. And I'm not going to even back that. So if you have a photograph, you can just tuck that right on in there. All right, let's close that up and let's get our paper for this. In your reserves, you will have this piece. On the back, it is this. Let's turn that upside down, measure over 5 1/2 and cut. Once you've done that, you're going to measure over 7 3/4 and cut. Once you have that, we're going to apply glue and we are going to center that on our top panel. So let's glue that down. Open it up, and now let's grab our pocket. The opening is this way. We will bring it all the way down to the bottom. Place it. Now grab this back out of your reserves. It has a piece of the owl on it. We're going to turn it this way, measure over 2 7/8 and cut. And we're going to just go ahead and glue that down. And we're going to make sure that we are centered side to side. It will give us a little bit of a white border around that pocket. On this cut apart sheet, let's go ahead and cut out the fox. And I'm just going to cut out and around him as best I can. Mine is cut out. I am not going to back him. I'm going to add some glue to him though. I'm just going to place him right on over here. Now let's get this in our book. We're going to apply glue to this and we are going to place it right on in there. And I'm leaving about, I'd say about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge here and centering top and bottom. So let's do that. Let's get it down. And that should get you away from that little hinge area. So once you have it done, let's flip this up. And we're going to give this a really good burnishing. The only thing I think that I would like to do to complete this page, where'd those scissors go? Cold hands, warm hearts, let's cut that out. And we're going to cut out and around that. Now for this piece, after you cut it out, I am going to glue this down to some white cardstock. And then I'm going to cut out and around, leaving about 1/16 of a border around this piece, because we are going to create a little tuck area. And I'll show you mine as soon as I finish this. So here is mine, you can see. So I am just going to rotate this over. I'm going to add glue just a little bit down the side here and along the bottom. And then I'm just going to glue it down right here. So that way, if you'd like to, instead of gluing a photo down, you can just tuck a photo in there. All right, we are moving on to page 4, and there are no pre-cuts for that page. In your paper pack, you will have this print, and on the back, it is this. Let's turn it this way, measure over 8 inches and cut. Now measure over 5 7/8 and cut. All right, let's apply glue, and in between this score line and the score line right here, so right here and right here, and that is where your other hinge is. So don't get confused about this little area here. So if you were to pull it up, you will see how this is to place. So just like that, centered on in there. So let's get that down. That way you're not gluing it down to one of the hinge areas. Sometimes with folios, they can kind of look a little confusing, or not confusing, but deceiving of where those are, those hinges and score lines are when it's being all laid out. Oh, I'll just go with it right there. I think that's straight enough. And this is a good page just to place a photograph. All right, page 4 is complete. We are moving on to page 5. All right, page 5. We had 2 pre-cuts. The first one was 5 5/8 by 8 1/4, and we called it a fold out. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 5 5/8 across, and all we did was score once at a 1/2 inch. Next, we had a 3 1/2 by 5 7/8 FO pocket. FO means fold out pocket. We laid this on our scoring board. We are 3 1/2 across, and we scored it at a 1/2. We then turned it. We are 5 7/8 across. We scored at a 1/2, and 5 3/8. In your reserves, you will have this print. This one was the page that we cut on for like the previous page. Right now, we are 8 inches. And this should be about 6 1/4 or so. Measure over 5 3/4 and cut. So for this one, we can actually glue this down because we are not going to attach to the back with our hinge of our fold out. Because there's no, we didn't give it any spacing, but that's okay. So we're just going to apply glue to this. Here's this. Be mindful of where the score line is, and we're going to center it on in there. It's a continuation of what's going on over here. Now let's grab our fold out, and we're going to fold on that. So we're going to situate it to where our hinge is over here, and we're going to apply glue. The peak is up. We're going to fold that back. And we are going to bring this all the way over to the white cardstock and line that up as best we can. So I'm just going to kind of turn this, make sure that this is straight. And we did not hook it behind. So when I open this up, I will have that. We're going to go ahead and grab this 12-inch piece of cardstock. It's in our reserves. It is about 1 inch. I would like you to actually turn it like this, measure over 8 inches and cut. Now measure over a 1/2 inch and cut. I am just going to go ahead and place that right like that, or you can use this side, whatever. I think this side looks better up. We're going to glue it on over there to cover up some of that white. So the trick of this is to make sure that you're not on your score line. You're going to take this and make it level with your decorative paper, and I'm just going to come to the side of that so I don't have any interference with this. So you should still be able to go like that. Let's get our paper for in here. So we are going to seam together 2 pieces because we are conserving. You have this in your reserves with the houses. And we're going to turn it like this. Measure over 8 inches and cut. All right, let's apply glue. And we're going to be mindful not to get on that score line. And we're just going to glue that down. In your reserves, you will have this. Measure over 8 inches and cut. And we're going to apply glue. You can either have the blue or this. And I'm going to go with this up. All right, let's fold that over. Okay, you have this in your reserves. On the back, it is this. Go ahead and divide these two. We're going to be working with this one. All right, to get this centered in there, the first thing we're going to do is measure over 5/8 and cut. Once you've done that, measure over 4 7/8 and cut. And so you have a choice, and I'm going to show you how this works. You can either glue it down with this side up, with nothing in there, and then this, or you can glue this down and have your sentiment there, and then the pocket's going to go down. I still have to assemble my pocket. I'm going to have the Merry Christmas up. If you haven't already assembled your pocket, go ahead and do so. Once you've assembled your pocket, we're going to add glue. The opening is right here, and we're going to bring it down, leaving a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. And we're going to do that side to side with our decorative paper. So we're going to use up some of these scraps. This you should have, and you should have this one. On both of these, measure over 4 7/8 and cut. Apply glue to this one, bring it down to the bottom of your pocket. Apply glue to this one, and overlap, and leave yourself a little bit of a white lip. Now on our cut apart sheet here, we're going to cut out and around this. All right, so if you have anything to stamp or want to do, you can. However, I'm going to be doing some layering. I am not backing this. I'm just going to glue this down. It's just more or less to try and hide some of that seam. Next, I'm going to cut out, let's see, which house? I'm going to cut out this house right here. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get this one out too. All right, let's cut out and around these. So I am going to go ahead and glue this down to some white cardstock, and I am going to cut out and around it to give it a little more strength, because this part is going to overhang over that. Okay, so if you went ahead and stamped an image, and you can place this any way you want. I'm actually going to be placing mine right here. And the tip of this, I don't want to get any glue on. But you can place this right in the middle if you want, and have that on either side would look good. It is up to you. This little piece, I'm just going to glue down. Oh, I'll put it right here. Alrighty, we are now moving on to page 6. Now, page 6, 7, and 8, there are no pre-cuts. All right, in your paper pack, you will find this print, and on the back, it is this. Turn it this way, measure over 8 inches, and cut. And we are going to do page 6 and 7 together. Our first cut, measure over 5 3/4 and cut. You'll need this, set that off to the side. We're going to apply glue, and we're going to center it right on in there. So this is a super easy, quick folio that you can get a lot of pictures in, actually. And I love this paper. I just fell in love with it when I saw it. All right. For page 7 now, measure over 6 inches and cut. Now I have my score lines here still, so that when I showed you and everything, I am going to erase them now, so I don't have to worry about glue and all that good stuff. Anyway, what you're going to do is center it in between those score lines there, just like you did with your other pieces. All right, we are moving on to this piece over here. We called it page 8. And then I also want to put a strip of paper here. All right, I think I want to use this, even though the owl is off to the side. We'll be cutting most of that off and putting that there, and then what's left over we'll have enough for in here. So I am going to first turn it this way, and I'm going to measure over 8 inches. Now I'm going to measure over 2 7/8 and cut. Now, after making that cut, this is what you should have. Set that to the side. I'm going to flip mine over, and I'm going to center it right on in there. Otherwise, I think the L is going to look kind of funny on its side. And we'll get some glue around those magnets. Now for this piece, we're going to measure over 5/8 and cut. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to glue it right in between those score lines. If you'd rather have it on this side where you have a little bit more like that brown, you can. I'm just going to go with it plain. This is completely up to you and what looks good to you. All right, I'd like to place something right on over here. And I think I'm going to cut out, Christmas is all around us. I like that. If you'd rather do something else, you can. All right, I'm just going to glue that down right on over the magnet. And if you'd like to put something else on top, you can. But I just want to make sure I get my edges really well. And I'm going to bring it on over. If you need to clip off the edge of yours a little more, do so. I'm just bringing it over until it's just at the edge there. And I have just enough to get that down. I'm going to get after the owl here. Here's my owl, and I'm just going to place him right there. I am not going to back him. He doesn't need to be. And if you want to do more, you can. I'm just bringing him over. Now you can also add thin pieces throughout your folio to fit in between. Just make sure in between your, like here, here's a piece. It's really skinny, small little piece I just got. And I'm just gonna place it right here. And it doesn't have to be wide or anything. I'm just placing it there. Here's a skinny piece. And I'm just cutting down scraps. Now with this, you're gonna need something really skinny to fit in between there. Otherwise you're gonna catch, just so you know. So I just cut this. Now you don't have to do any of this. I'm just now just using little scrap pieces that I'm finding and cutting it to kind of fit in there. So that's all there is to it. All you have to do is do some picture mats to fit in there. Again, we don't do picture mats together. Everybody has their own size of photographs they like to print. Happy crafting, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you on my next one real soon.